Hi, I'm Ray, and this is RayRay Cab's first video, kind of an introductory video, to do an overview of what these three bass cabinets are, what they have to offer, a little bit about how they're different, and my background. First of all, I'm obviously a bass player, if you can call me that. Music major from way back when, studied audio engineering. Worked for a large loudspeaker company, worked in the educational side of things for a little bit, had my own live sound company, done a lot of live sound, recording, that sort of thing. But bass playing is probably my favorite thing in the world to do. I love to play. I'd rather be the guy playing bass than the guy doing sound, if that makes sense. If I'm doing sound, I want to be on the other side. So it's been a long path, probably 35 years of experience and listening to get myself to this point where I can say these brand new cabs have been in the making for really over 30 years. And I'm a slow learner, let me tell you. I learn everything the hard way. I'll tell a really quick story which I hope will help to get the big picture. I was lucky enough to go to a recording session in Nashville at, I think it's called the Sound Kitchen. I've only been there once in my life. Incredible facility. They had a Yamaha C7 piano, which I will remember for the rest of my life. The piano was on a bunch of the songs that we were recording, and the session was done down there, but the tracks were brought back up here. I'm in Massachusetts. At the time I was working for Bose, and I was working on recording some music for Bose Corporation that could be used for whatever. So I got the tracks back to Framingham, and I remember I got to the part where I had to kind of, bring the piano in, fix it up, pan it, whatever I had to do to it. If I remember, we had AKG 414s on it, and I sat, literally for like a 10-hour day. I just sat in the room and all I did was listen to that piano. I'll never forget it. It's just one of the most beautiful instruments I've ever heard. So I got it all panned to however I want it. Back in those days, we always put extra mics on things. You don't have to use them if you don't need them, but they're there, right? So whatever I did, I got it. So, it was just a thing of beauty. So whenever it was, next day, whatever, it's time for the piano to be unsoloed and go back into the mix. And it was one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, what did I just do? And it was kind of my first, like I say, I learned everything the hard way. It was my first introduction as to everything has a place in the mix. And it's funny, I didn't really learn it with my instrument, bass. I learned it with piano. Of course, piano is incredibly wide frequency range, and maybe that makes sense because it's more liable to step on other things or other things step on it. So anyway, I hope that kind of outlines what these bass cabinets are about. There are a lot of bass cabinets in stores just out there that have these big bottom ends and really bright, shiny tweeters. I listen to them in stores and I love them. I love that sound. I go to it. I'm drawn to it. It's impressive. But when you bring that into the mix, it doesn't fit in the mix. It doesn't sit properly. And how many people have had front of house engineer guy or gal say to them, bass, you got to bring it down. Too much. You're screwing up my mix. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. And that's not a place you want to go, because if you're doing that, you're harming the band. You work really hard. You try hard for your sound. Everybody else in the band is working for their sound. And now, I'm sorry, but you're kind of screwing things up. If you're screwing up the mix, it doesn't matter that you're happy with your sound on stage. I mean, that's great and all. But you're there for them out there. How do you sound out there? That's what really matters. That's what makes it professional. And the character of sound that needs to be generated from on stage is not always exactly what that really cool sounding cab sounds like. So when I was designing these cabs, I built a whole bunch in my garage. I've thrown out more pieces of junk, if you will. And when I first built them, they sounded incredible in the garage. And you know, I might come in and look at them on an analyzer or something, and which really doesn't matter. I don't care. What matters is how they work in the real world. And I'd bring them to a gig, and I'd put it behind me, and I'd play the gig. And usually within the first one or two songs, I knew right away, uh-oh, this is one of those cabinets. And it's funny, they tend to sound good by themselves, but when I bring them into the mix of the band, it doesn't work. So it took me a year and a half, 2 years to kind of get to the point of, wow, here's a cabinet I brought with me, and this is really sitting in the mix nice. And that's what we're looking at here. So it took me a long time to get to this point. Believe me, I didn't put drivers in boxes. These were tested in the real world. That's Spectral. As far as transporting, because we're talking about gigs here, all of these cabinets, there's 3 models, all cabinets have rollers or casters built into the back, and they have telescoping handles on the back, so that you can pull up your handle, maybe throw a bag of cables or something on the top, tilt it back, and wheel it. And they all have handles right here in the top. And the handles do 2 things. Number 1, they allow you to kind of grab the cabinet from the back, get it up against your belly, grab the handles, and you can tilt it back and get it into an SUV, a pickup truck, or whatever. But also, if you look at the top of this box, it might be a little hard to see in the video, but these are 3-way cabinets. So there's not just a mid driver here, there's also a tweeter. This is a coaxial driver. And there's a tweeter down inside here, and there's a reflector up here. Well, there's a lot of mid and high frequency, well, all the mid and high frequency is up here basically. And these side handles, it's not a scientific thing, but they let a little bit of mid and high kind of escape to the sides, whereas, you know, you've got kind of a nice dispersion across the front here from your left to your right, and a little bit more coming out the sides. And if you think about it, the back line is the back, and your drummer might be right over there. I don't know if that bass is in the shot, but your drummer might be right there, and it's nice if the drummer can hear the bass player, and vice versa. Of course, we never have a problem hearing him or her, right? But that's one of the spatial features that's built into these, and I'm going to do a separate video on spatial, because there's some problems there, especially guitar players, and I'll solve those problems someday down the road. But there are problems with putting mid and high frequencies through a large driver. And a lot of you already know what I'm talking about. We'll dive into that in a different video. But what I wanted to do here today was just kind of give an overview of the cabs, and we'll do a little demo in a minute or two. Oh, that's my dog. God bless you. Before we jump into the demo portion, I just want to outline these 3 cabinets. So this is the first cab I made that I realized actually really sounded nice. It's called the Malamute, and the dog that sneezed is a Malamute. I don't know if you heard her, but incredibly athletic, strong, just can go all day. I mean, she can just run and run and run. And that's kind of what this cabinet is like. It's very agile, it's strong, and it loves to go. It's all premium drivers. There's nothing cheap about it, believe me. I put the best of everything I could find into these cabinets. But it's a 3-way cabinet. It has a Neo 12, and then it has an 8-inch mid and a 1.4-inch compression driver in a kind of a coaxial form, so that compression driver is down underneath. It has the built-in wheels, it has the handle. The jacks are on the side of the cabinet. And that's because, I don't know about you folks, but I get to a gig, I bring my rig in, my head, my bass, I gotta go back, I play some keyboards too, so I gotta bring the keyboard in, the keyboard stand, the mic stands, I bring the subwoofers for the band, whatever. You know, sweat's pouring off me at this point already. My cabinet or cabinets are already in place. I put my head on top, and then what do I got? I got my head up here, and now I've got to go find the jack on the back of the cabinet somewhere. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Wouldn't it be nice if the jacks are on the side? you know, so you didn't have to take your head off and tilt the cabinet forward and go, because it's always dark, it's always nasty down there. It's, yeah, you don't want to go there. So the jacks are on the side, and there's the speak-on style, and there's 2/4 inch, and everything is paralleled. All of these cabinets are 8 ohm, by the way, so you can use 2 together on pretty much any head that's out there that's made nowadays. Most of them are 8 ohm. 250 watts at 8 ohms or 500 watts at 4 ohms is a very middle of the road kind of typical amp. That's so you can use 2 of these. So that's the Malamute. The Bulldog is very similar. It has the same top, mid, and tweeter, but down the bottom there's a Neo 15-inch driver, and that's a Fatale. And that is one of the most beautiful drivers I've heard and used in my experience. I've used them as replacement drivers in subwoofers and whatnot, and yeah, shout out to those folks. It's really quite a piece of engineering. So the Bulldog gives you the same mid and high, but a little bit more low end, just because of the size of the driver and the efficiency of that driver at low frequencies. So you actually get a bump of like 4 or 5 dB in the lower frequencies with the Bulldog, with the same output from your amp. And in addition to that, we have the Helper. And the Helper is a 12-inch with a 1-inch tweeter. And it's also coaxial design. So what you're looking at here is a 12 and a 1. It does not have the spatial niceties of the Malamute or the Bulldog. It is a Helper. So if you want to move more air, and remember I said these are all 8 ohm, well, you plug this in with a Helper or this in with a Helper, now you've dropped your total load that your amp is looking at down to 4 ohms. Your amp can output everything it can if you're using one of these kind of typical solid state amps. And you can move more air with it. It's also designed, the footprint of it is large enough so that both of these cabs will sit on top. Although I'll give you a cheat. The last band I was in, we started taking the Helper and putting it on the other side where one of the lead guitar player was in this particular band. And he would put his amp on top of this. And then he had an extension cab. He had a beautiful Mesa setup. And this is my Mesa right here. And he put his extension cab on my side because we didn't put the bass or guitar into the floor wedges, you know. And it was instant. The first gig we did that, he turned to me and he was like, "Oh my God, I can hear you thumping away behind me." And his playing tightened up, and all of a sudden I could hear everything he was doing because he. So anyway, you get what I'm saying. Just a little hint. That might be something to try. And if you do use 2 of these cabs, grab a 20-25 foot speaker cable. Don't worry about it. Use a 14 gauge or something. Throw it on the other side, over where maybe your lead guitar player is or whoever's over there. It's not just good for the musicians, it's also good for the room. If you have a wireless, I'm sure you set up, you walk out into the room and you listen to your rig a little bit. Maybe like I do, you look for the bump in the room, because I swear every room I play, there's a bump. It might be 120 hertz, it might be 180 hertz, who knows, but there's a bump somewhere. And I try to find it by hitting every note on the bass, and then one of them blooms. Then I go maybe back to my EQ and I try to find it, and I pull it down a little bit, right? Well, when you're out there, if you separate your 2 cabs left and right, listen to the difference in how the bass sounds in the room. There was a study in the Audio Engineering Society journal, I don't know, years and years and years ago. And somebody did an experiment on bass coming from one location and bass coming from 2 locations. And the listeners, one of the words they used was more envelopment or greater envelopment. And it's very true in this case too. Put your cabinets to each side. Don't worry about it. Other people don't do it? Good. That's a good thing. If you do what everybody else is doing, how are you ever going to be better? You want to be better? You got to at least try to be different, right? So anyway, what I'd like to do is play 4 examples. These are things I found on YouTube. They are great bass players. They are known bass players. And I tried to kind of cover some different styles of music. It doesn't matter. You could put almost any bass player through this next little demo we're going to do. So first I'm just going to play these little clips by themselves. First up is Flea. When I play Flea, I want you to listen to how you can hear his strings hitting the frets, and listen to the grit of his sound, and listen to where his sound is. There's not a ton of low end going on. It's all of his character is in the mid range. So let's listen to that. Okay, second is Carol Kay. Everybody knows Carol Kay. She's, my goodness, where would we be without her, right? She, as best as I've never met her, but as best as I can find out, she played with a pick. She had kind of a high action. She had that mute kind of taped over her strings most of the time. I don't know all the time, but most of the time. So we're going to listen to a little Carol Kay, but again, I want you to listen to how you can hear her pick actually leaving the strings. And these are isolated bass tracks from huge recordings. These are the sounds that we as bass players try to emulate if we want to be pros, right? So listen to how you can actually hear her pick coming off the strings, and listen to how balanced her mid-range is, just right across. You know, low mid to high mid. It's beautifully balanced. But again, no crazy highs, no crazy lows. Remember what I was talking about before. Let's listen to Carol Kay. Okay, next up is John Entwistle. This was taken from a live recording. So whatever he had on stage, there was a mic in front of it. You can hear some of the audience bleed in the mic. Oh, by the way, did you hear the punch-in in the Carol Kay piece? That's kind of interesting. I haven't heard, you don't hear punch-ins anymore with Pro Tools, I guess. Anyway, John Entwistle. Listen to kind of, we all know his tone, huge mid-range, very bright high-end, a lot of dirt and a lot of growl. And again, all of that dirt and growl is in the mid-range. And I'm going to keep harping on this. That's where the tone of the instrument is. Let's listen to John Entwistle. And then last, one of my gods, maybe my favorite bass player. I don't know if I have one, but he's certainly up there. It's Geddy Lee. What an incredible bass sound. I mean, not just an incredible player and human being and all that, but his tone is just amazing. It's partly his bass. It's very much how he plays. It's, you know, whatever amplifiers and pedals or whatever he's got going on. I don't know. But his tone is really magical, and this is isolated. So listen for his growl, his distortion. Listen to how you can hear his fingers, the skin on his fingers almost going through the strings. If there wasn't so much a distortion, maybe you could hear that. And just listen to how perfect his mid-range is. Again, mid-range is where the tone is. Let's listen. So hopefully those A/B comparisons with those four great bass players makes it a little bit easy to kind of hear and understand what's going on with these cabinets. The beauty of the tone of those players, and not just the tone of their instruments, but also how they play, like the way Geddy and John Entwistle dig into those strings, or the way Carol Kaye's pick comes off the string. You can really hear that, and that's a lot of the tone. One of the examples I really wanted to use, and I couldn't find it isolated, was Wichita Lineman. When Carol Kaye does that, dun 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 dun, that is, I mean, oh my God, that is just the tone of that, and it's just so beautiful. But listen to the tone of the intro of that song. That is the bass tone. That's it, and it's all this beautiful mid-range and a little bit of high of the pick coming off the string. Those are the really important frequencies. And by design, these cabinets accentuate those frequencies. They let that stuff out into the room, both spectrally and, I'll get into in another video, spatially. They spread it into the room vertically and horizontally better than any other cabinet out there. But that'll be another video. So portability is important for bass players. These are designed for players going out playing 50, 100, 150 person rooms. You ever play Ralph's in Worcester, or the Chinese food restaurant up on Route 1 in Saugus? They have stairs. Ois, they have stairs. These are not your huge monstrous cabinets that are just behemoths to move around. I'm getting older. Some of you are a lot younger than me, but none of us are getting younger. So, you know, these are made for a working player who's going to be bouncing around, you know, every weekend. If you're playing a room bigger than 150 people, unless somebody is going to bring like an 810 cab for you and set it up for you, which would be great. That's not most of us anyway. Unless that's the scenario, you should be going through the PA. So bring your back line, bring one or two of these cabs, but then go through the PA, and wherever you want to pick up your bass sound to send to your sound person, do that. So again, the American Bulldog is a 15 Neo, an 8-inch mid, and a 1.4 compression driver for the highs. The Malamute is a 12-inch Neo, and again an 8-inch and a 1.4. And the Helper cab is a 12-inch with a 1-inch compression driver. They all have wheels built in. By the way, the wheels I chose are much better quality than some of the other wheels out there. So if you're wheeling them down a sidewalk, or maybe you're setting up for a wedding, and you're in a hall, and you know, some of those hard plastic wheels, they make a lot of noise when they roll. These are softer rubber, and you know, we're just trying to be thoughtful here, you know. Let's not make a racket when we're loading in. So they are nice quality wheels. The handles do telescope out, so you can tilt back, and you can throw a bag of cables or something on the top. Here's your telescoping handle. They're made right here in Massachusetts. I warranty everything for 1 year. If you live near enough to me and you've got one out and you scratch it up and stuff, please scratch them up. That's what they're for. But if you scratch it up, bring it by my house. I'm in Dudley, Mass. I'll touch up the paint for you. It's no big deal. We'll hang out, we'll have a beer. It'll be great. Tell me what you think of the cabs. I would appreciate that. So anyway, that's an overview of the cabs and of the spectral characteristics, and I'll be doing another video on the spatial stuff soon. Thank you very much for tuning in. Again, it's a brand new cab that's been in the works for probably 35 years, and I honestly say this. I started building these because I was bored. I had been laid off, and I thought, well, I'm going to make myself a bass cab. And then it just took off from there, and then that's when I realized, like, wow, the stuff that sounds good in my garage or on the floor here in the living room does not work when I go out and gig, and I got deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And that's when I learned, because God knows I learn everything the hard way, that's when I learned just how important these other frequency ranges are for us bass players. So I'm not trying to impress my opinion or any of that on folks. I'm hoping that folks will take this as a cheat. It took me a lot to learn this. I'm trying to just give it to you. so you don't have to go through the same crap that I've gone through. And hopefully it won't take you 35 years to figure out that, oh wow, these frequencies and these frequencies, they do kind of matter where they sit and where they're balanced. I'm just trying to give you the cheat. And at the same time, because I go out there at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm packing up, I thought it would be nice to make the cab a little bit easier on us folks who have to do that and go through that. Because, yeah, it's tiring. You know, you're tired at that point in the night. And you just want to pack up and go home, and I get that. So I've tried to put that thoughtfulness into these cabs, and I really hope people appreciate it. This was not a moneymaker for me. I was bored, and I wanted to make myself a better bass cab. Frankly, I don't care if I make any money off of these or not. If people appreciate them to some degree, whatever is possible, fantastic. Use them, please. That's what they're here for. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. This is video number 1. I'll put together a spatial video later. These are, if you go to RayRayCabs.com, I'll keep an updated list of where the cabs are available. There's more information on there, but a lot of it we already covered in this video. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it, and rock on. Cheers.